that the sun shines down its power to all the world and makes the wind blow strong as it will. So lovely earth can stay lovely still. Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Energy Week with George Harvey and the famous Tom Fennell. Every day I get up early. I got up this morning at 4 o'clock. Today,
bragging again.
Talking about today being the 8th of December. And of course what I'm finding is news from the previous day. I do this every day. Put 10 or 15 items on energy and climate change up at the blog, which is geoharvey.com, Geoharvey. When you go there, you'll find a calendar. If you click on a date on the calendar, you'll get the day's news for that date. And I'm going to try to remember to give dates on these items that we deal with here, so people can know where to go to find them.
Well, some of the things that we discuss
Yes.
are much greater in depth than we have time to talk about on the show.
Absolutely.
And some of them are well worth looking into. There's one I think we got this week that's got all sorts of animations on it, and it's when these come up, I'll try to mention it because some of these are really they're interesting, they're informative. Some of them are even fun.
Yeah, some of them are fun. Before we start, I want to mention that in the news of December 7th, yesterday's news, which I saw this morning, and we won't go into this in detail on the show.
It's a next week thing.
It'll be for next week. Is an item that I think is really one of the top items that I've come across for the year, which is that 2 counties in Massachusetts, 21 municipalities total, have switched just like that to renewable energy.
Mm-hmm.
And that was through a community aggregation system, which the state has permitted. Greenfield had done something where they had gone into community aggregation, but now all of the communities on Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard are in the community aggregation system, buying 100% renewable power.
Hey.
And the price of the price of retail price of power actually for all customers, residences, industry, and so forth. The retail price has gone down about 1/6 of a cent per kilowatt hour.
Yeah, it seems that's happening. It's actually getting to be a little bit cheaper. It is, I know, in Greenfield.
Yes.
And there are still people who don't want to be part of this, and they're paying a little bit more for their power. Hey, you gotta keep quiet here. You're not supposed to be here.
I don't know what it is.
Funny noises I'm hearing here.
Funny thing. Okay.
This is basically a bookkeeping thing.
It's basically a bookkeeping thing, except that it affects people's bills, and it also means that the
renewables have
providers of
support.
that renewable power is being sold, and it's being sold through a provider who specializes in.
Well, we're going to be seeing more and more of this, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, our first news item for today is dated Thursday, December 1st, and we have a picture.
This one's a scary one.
We should
Yeah,
put
let me
this
get
picture
that picture up here.
This is an item that appeared in Clean Technica, and you have a title on this?
Yeah, Key Glacier in West Antarctica is breaking apart from the inside out. We may see significant collapse of West Antarctica in our lifetime.
What is west of Antarctica? I mean, it doesn't make sense. But there is an area.
They've got it all figured out. I've asked that question before, and there is an answer.
There is an answer,
And,
which you can find on a map.
Yes,
If
definitely.
you've got a map that shows names of those places.
Well, basically, South America's on the left, and Africa's on the right, and that's the way they orient the map of Antarctica.
Okay. New research from Ohio State University determined that a calving event creating an enormous iceberg on West Antarctica in 2015 was even more notable than first thought. It was the result of deep subsurface rift that formed approximately 20 miles inland. Now this is inland on a glacier.
This is inland ice. This is not floating ice. So when this melts, it's going to raise the ocean.
Yeah,
Floating ice does not raise the ocean it's like a melting ice cube in your drink.
which means that you'll have cities like Miami, for example, flooding more often.
Which we will be talking about a little bit later on.
Right. And as I said, that came from Clean Technique. It's a scary photograph. That photograph, let's put that back up. That photograph is a rift that's 20 miles from the sea, but it's because the glacier is moving toward the sea. It's kind of like, instead of pushing toward the sea, it's being sucked toward the sea. Mm-hmm. It's being drawn toward the sea. This is not good.
Well, the takeaway here is no longer a question of whether West Antarctic ice sheet will melt. It's a question of when.
Yeah.
And apparently, reading into this article, what's causing this is ocean water is seeping underneath the glacier
Right.
from the sea and melting it from the bottom.
Right. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, I think we can.
BBC provided us with this next item.
OPEC countries agree to first oil output cut in 8 years. This is significant.
It is. The oil cartel OPEC has agreed to
Hey, I got this guy in here so he doesn't stay out in the car and get and freeze to death.
Yeah,
but,
right.
I thought he
This
was
is
going to be
being
quiet.
Being kind to animals day. The oil cartel OPEC has agreed to its first supply cut in 8 years, after more than 2 years of depressed oil prices because of a glut on the market. OPEC's president said that a cut of 1.2 million barrels a day would start from January. The price of Brent crude jumped 10% to $51.94 a barrel, and U.S. crude rose 9% to $49.53.
I read some of the inside story here. Saudi Arabia alone is going to cut output by 500,000 barrels a day.
Wow.
That's a lot.
That is.
Iran, in contrast, was allowed to increase production slightly because they've been out of the market for a long time.
Yeah, everybody wants to be nice to Iran because Iran is so nice to everybody else.
Oh, but of course.
Of course.
And Russia is going to, well, non-OPEC countries, they're not bound by this, but they've agreed to cut production by 600,000 barrels a day total. Half of that's going to be borne by Russia. So this is very serious stuff.
It is. I wonder where this is going to go because I wonder what that meeting
They're
was
probably
like.
cheating already.
Well, I wonder what that meeting was like because I think I have a feeling that oil consumption is going down.
Oh, it is.
And
It is, and they don't
so
know what to do
They
about
don't know
that.
what to do about that, so they've got to agree to cut production in order to meet
To get the prices back
decline
up.
in order, yeah. And so I don't know that the price is going to go up all that much. I mean, after the amounts that we had here listed in this news on BBC, they went down again. But I don't know by how much. I didn't check today to find out what they were.
Well, it's going to take probably a couple of weeks for this all to normalize and go up and down and balance.
Yeah. Okay. Our next item is from Hydrogen Fuel News.
DTE Energy will embrace renewable energy and abandon coal. And you're going to find out in a second who DTE Energy is.
I don't know who it is. Who is it? What's DTE?
Oh,
It's a Michigan utility.
it's probably D probably
Detroit.
stands for Detroit. Yeah.
Detroit. Michigan's largest utility, DTE Energy, is moving ahead with efforts to phase out its use of coal and will not be swayed by any political potential changes to the federal energy policy. DTE Energy intends to embrace renewable energy more aggressively in coming years, regardless of what changes come from the recent election.
Well, there's a backstory here, and it says some utilities have opposed the growth in coal consumption due to the changing energy landscape.
Yes.
A lot of them have a lot of old plants, and they're going to have to be replaced, and the new ones to replace them are very expensive.
Yes. Coal is very expensive.
And yeah, older plants are facing higher costs, and they have to deal with this. You know, we going to rehab this plant, or are we going to keep it running, or are we going to go to renewables?
Right.
And this is, if you follow this article, renewables is the answer.
Yes. Okay.
If they don't mention gas being part of the equation, but it is
Well, gas is part of the equation.
for now.
For now, yeah. Okay, our next item is from Wind Power Engineering.
New York plans to become the first state to bid in a federal offshore wind auction. This is significant.
This is, and this is actually New York State doing this. New York State Energy Research and Development Authority may become the first U.S. state entity to participate in a federal auction for an offshore wind site. NYSERDA submitted documentation and a bid deposit to take part in an auction for 79,350 acre site, wind energy area 12 miles off Long Island, the Long Island coast.
We've talked about this before. This is between Long Island and Block Island.
Yes.
It's a large area. This is 11 square miles we're talking about.
Mm-hmm. This is a big area, and they can put a lot of power in there. They can get a lot of power from there.
Well, this is the beginning, because we got that continental shelf from Maine to Florida. It's 300 feet deep, ideal for wind power.
Yes.
And it will be developed.
It'll be developed. There's no question about it. It's just a question of
And they're doing it slowly, that's all.
Friday, December 2nd.
Well, this guy got a picture of this one.
There you go. This is from Business Insider.
Let me get the picture up.
There used to be a magazine called Insider, INCIDER,
Oh, yeah?
which was about Apple computers.
Oh, yeah? Was it really? Yeah, cool. Well, here's a picture of Miami.
Yes.
Beautiful downtown Miami on a beautiful downtown summer day.
Sunny
And there's
day.
water in the street.
And there's water in the street.
Mayors could override Trump on the Paris Climate Accord.
Right.
And George is going to tell you here's how.
Yeah. In a recent op-ed, former New York Mayor Richard Bloomberg wrote, quote, "If the Trump administration does withdraw from the Paris Accord, I will recommend that the 128 U.S. mayors who are part of the global covenant of mayors seek to join in its place," end quote.
That's pretty heavy. Now, Bloomberg is not speaking off the top of his head here.
No.
He is the head of this group of mayors.
Yes.
So he's got a little bit of clout here.
He's got some clout. They would do it, I think, and I think a lot of them would do it just to do something that's in your face to Donald Trump. But
Well, what Bloomberg said is President-elect Donald Trump can try to slow down environmental progress in the U.S., but he can't reverse it altogether.
can't reverse
And I
it.
don't think he's going to really change much. We'll talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to change much either.
Well, we have somebody unusual or unlikely on our side. It's called Ivanka. We'll get to
Indeed.
that.
The daughter with a long neck. Did you ever see a painting called the Madonna with a long neck?
No, I haven't.
Well, next time you see a picture of Ivanka that shows her neck, look at how
Oh, yeah?
she's got a very long
I've got a
neck.
long neck, huh?
Yeah. Okay, our next item is from mysanantonio.com.
And bringing it back to Vermont, Bernie Sanders burns the House Science Committee for promoting a misleading article on climate change.
There's no doubt about that. The House of Representatives Committee on Science, Space, and Technology tweeted a misleading article at Breitbart about the state of the global climate. It read, quote, "Global temperatures plunge, icy silence from climate alarmists," end quote. Bernie Sanders responded to the tweet asking, quote, "Where'd you get your PhD, Trump University?"
Beautiful.
Beautiful. You know, Breitbart, when I started doing my blog, I actually started it 5 years ago, over 5 years ago, in 2011, because of the Fukushima disaster. And I started it as a daily email that was sent to people, and mostly people in the New England Coalition on Nuclear Pollution. And over the course of the first year that I was doing this, or first year and a half, I kept coming up with material that came from Breitbart, with material that came from a couple of other organizations, Cato Institute being one of them. And I looked, they were so outlandish compared to what everybody else was saying that I
Heritage Foundation.
I looked to find out what the facts were, and what I found was several articles in which Breitbart and Cato were using data that was about 3 or 4 years old.
Uh-huh.
And when you're in a situation where something is growing at a rate of 35% per year or 65% per year, 3 or 4 year old data, you might as well just say it doesn't exist. You know?
I read this article,
Yeah,
and it's crazy.
it's crazy.
It's really crazy. I mean, these guys pull this stuff right out of their socks.
Yeah, yeah. This is a you know, a top hat turned upside down on a table with a magic wand, and out comes Breitbart information. You know, it's hardly surprising because they are being funded, as far as I can tell, by a group of people who I think are unscrupulous, funded by fossil fuels. So they want to maintain the bottom line.
I think something very much like that is what's
Yeah.
happening, sure.
They want to keep the bottom line for the fossil fuels companies as good as possible for the next quarter. And if Donald Trump fires them and they're out of the cabinet and so forth, that's fine because they have their, you know, they just
They're
keep
doing
their
okay.
profits going as long as they can.
They're doing okay.
Yeah. Okay, our next item is from Clean Technica.
Canada's tar sands province to auction 5 gigawatts of wind. This is interesting.
This is really interesting. The Canadian province of Alberta, known for its notoriously dirty wind sands, has just made a symbolically significant about-face on energy policy with potential major implications for North America wind power. First up is a tender for 5 gigawatts of wind power. Alberta will also pay its coal plants $1 billion to shut down.
Well, there's a backstory here.
I guess.
I'll read just a one sentence. Last year's surprising election upset put a decisive end to 80 years of conservative rule in the oil sands capital of the world with a radical change in political leadership.
Yeah.
And this is the first evidence of that radical change.
Well, there's a lot going on here, and one of the problems that they've got, you know, people don't realize this. I don't remember when I came across this. It was very recently, and it might be something that's in this week's news, and it might have been in last week's news, but one way or the other, one of the things that I came across was the fact that oil and gas exploration, because they're basically done together, exploration and development is at a level that is the lowest it's been since the 1950s.
Well, that kind of makes a lot of sense.
Well, part of the problem is this dirty oil from
It's expensive to get out of the
it
ground,
costs $2 a gallon to get it out of the ground.
and you can't sell it for that.
You can't sell it for that.
Yeah.
So why, you know, I mean, again, and we saw that thing about ExxonMobil saying that they were thinking of basically not developing something like, I'm trying to think of what it was. It was 4.5 billion barrels of oil from it was dirty oil from Canada. 4.5 billion barrels of oil is a lot of money. It's a lot.
But if they can't sell it, it's worthless.
That's right.
And that's
Right.
basically the problem. They're looking at $2 to get it out of the ground. They got to sell it for $1.50.
That's right.
Duh.
I think a barrel of oil is 35 gallons, as I recall.
I don't know.
So $1.50
Yeah.
is pretty close to
Yeah.
what its current price
Yeah.
is. And of course, if you raise the price to make it profitable to get the stuff out of the ground, then it's up against
Competition.
renewable energy.
And
that-
gas.
What did we report last week? That in Dubai, the price of electric power from PVs was
Less
so
than
low.
2 cents.
But it was so low that it would compete with oil at $5 a barrel.
Oh, yeah.
So how do you sell
How do you-
oil at
how do you deal with
$75
that?
a barrel? You
How do you
can't.
deal with that?
Okay, so should we go on?
Yes, we shall.
We're up to Saturday, the 3rd of December, and we've got a picture here, I think.
Oh,
Yes. This is a really interesting article, absolutely fascinating from my point of view, from Electric Power and Light.
Wait a second.
Did I do something bad?
Well, the picture isn't, we're not ready for that picture yet, I don't think. We're talking about demolishing, Yankee.
Yeah, they're
We're getting ahead of ourselves.
I'm going to leave the picture. That's okay. Nobody cares.
It's a good picture. We can't see it very well,
All right.
but we'll have to talk about it.
This article from Electric Power and Light is not about batteries and battery storage. It's about Vermont Yankee, and this is a very interesting article.
Firm says it can demolish idle Vermont nuclear plant soon. Well, we've talked about this
We have
already.
indeed, yeah. An official with a company seeking to buy Vermont Yankee nuclear power plant says it can dismantle the plant for the money currently in the decommissioning fund. The CEO of Northstar says if his company can't dismantle the plant for the $580 million in the fund, then his company would make up the difference.
Well, I think he's going to have to if he gets the contract.
Well,
But yeah,
you know,
it's good he's putting his money where his mouth is.
except for one thing.
Or a mouth
and
where
that
his money is.
What that means is that we're going to have to be super, super, super careful to make sure that he's doing what he says he's doing.
Yeah, we have to keep an eye on him, but from what I've read about him, I think he can do it.
He very easily could, I think. I mean, this is not a company that has no experience. Okay, now we're up to the battery storage. And this is from Gizmodo,
this is a
Australia.
good one. Let me pull
This
up
is a
this picture
good
here.
picture.
It's
Except that you can't
unfortunate,
read
I
it.
don't think you can see this very well unless you got a great big screen.
Let's
And
leave
even
it-
at that, I'm looking behind me on a great big screen, and
It's hard to
It's
read,
hard
but
to
we'll
read.
talk about it.
we'll have
Hey,
to look this one up on this article. It's a very good article.
Yeah, this is December 3rd, and it's from Gizmodo, Australia, and it's probably in the technical section of the blog for the day. But we can talk about this anyway. Basically, what happens is the vertical on this chart is the discharge time at rated power for the battery, and ranging from seconds to hours.
Well, what they're doing here is comparing the various ways of storing energy. Batteries, pumped storage, compressed air, flywheels.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a
of
lot of
information.
information just
Right.
in that graph alone, but we can't really get it up.
Well, the graph is up, people can see it, and the at the top of the graph are things that can discharge over a period of hours, and at the bottom are things that can discharge only for a period of seconds. And things that discharge quickly, like flywheels, which you see close to the bottom, those things are very valuable for the grid because it means the grid can be stabilized.
These things are virtually instantly on.
Yeah, they're just there. From the left of the graph to the right, the left means the lowest power, and the right
Lowest
is
number of kilowatts.
yeah, the lowest number of kilowatts, and at the right end is the highest, and the chart goes to 1 gigawatt. But if you look at the very top right, pumped storage, there are pumped storage facilities in this country that are over a gigawatt. In fact, Northfield.
Northfield, it is a gigawatt, yes.
Slightly more than a gigawatt. And basically what this tells you is that for all kinds of different purposes, there are all kinds of different storage.
Exactly.
Yeah, the lithium-ion battery, it says the discharge at the rated power is 4 minutes. And really, a lithium-ion battery, what that tells me is that at the rated power, it'll go for minutes, but at a lower power, it'll go for hours. And
Well, all of these things have their place.
all of them have their place.
I mean, if you're doing something at home, unless you're very uniquely situated, you're not going to have pumped storage.
No.
But lithium
Lithium-ion
batteries make a lot of
batteries
sense.
make sense, and as a matter of fact, there are other things that could make sense. For example, I worked in a chemical facility at one time where they had motors that they were so worried about fumes that could collect and ignite if there was a spark that they didn't even permit electric motors. So how do you turn an agitator in a pot if you're not allowed to have an electric motor run it? Use compressed air.
Okay, makes
You know?
sense, yeah.
So here is
I mean,
compressed
there are
air.
compressed air motors, I mean, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. And these things were little. They were like this big.
Uh-huh,
And you plug it into a compressed air line.
uh-huh.
And the line, these compressed air lines were pipes that ran through the
Yeah,
building.
yeah.
And you could plug the thing in and it would go spin the agitator, move the stuff through the pot. And okay, that was a tiny thing. Compressed air could be used in a home for some purpose. And you know, it's a neat thing that can be used if you have the correct motor.
These things are in a state of evolution right now.
They are.
They will be changing, and well, for example, you're using batteries at home.
Yeah.
But it's not lithium ion.
It's not lithium ion, it's salt. And on this thing, sodium sulfur batteries are above lithium ion and to the right. My batteries are different from sodium sulfur batteries, but you know, there's lots of different ways this can be done. We should be getting on, instead of dwelling on this. We could probably run on this one for hours.
Well, there's a quick one for those who don't know. The concept of storage is simple. Storage system takes power off the grid when prices are low, puts it back on a grid when prices are high.
Wow, that's called arbitrage. You're buying in one market, selling in another. You're buying in a market where the stuff is cheap and selling in a market where the stuff is
That's what it's all about.
Dear.
And it makes a lot of sense.
That's right. Okay, so we're up to Sunday, December 4th.
Yeah, we got
have
a nice,
another picture.
nice picture
You might
here.
as well just leave it there. Man.
California unsure what to do with 100 million dead trees.
100 million dead
There's
trees.
a picture of some of those dead trees.
And you know, the thing that's depressing about this is that the drought in the southeast, Georgia, Mississippi,
It's even worse than what's in
is worse than
California.
what's in California. Dianne Feinstein has urged the U.S. Department of Agriculture to revisit her request for federal aid to help crews clear over 100 million dead trees. You know what? You could get a lot of firewood out of those dead trees. Posing hazards throughout California forests. Dried out freestanding timber throughout the state threatens nearby structures and increases the risk of forest fires. This is from AsianJournal.com.
But what's causing this was 5 years of drought.
5 years of
Okay,
drought.
but what's really exacerbating the problem is there's a surplus of wood, nobody wants to buy it.
Yes.
So they don't know what to do because
They
they
don't
don't
know
have
what
the
to
money to ship it out of state.
You know, I remember when there was an ice storm in New York State, and they took 50,000 tons of dead wood, forest falls.
That wasn't very long
That
ago.
had to be removed. This was, well, it might not have been the last storm. I think it was 30 years ago.
Okay, because we just had something about
Yeah.
10 years ago
Yeah.
that was like that.
And they didn't know what to do with the wood, so what did they do?
I don't know.
Dumped it in Lake Erie.
Oh, well, that solves everything, doesn't it?
All right.
Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah, why, you know. 50,000 tons of wood, put it in Lake Erie for crying out loud.
Wow.
Feed the Lake Erie monster. He eats wood, right? Okay. We're up to an article from CNN.
Here's the good news about climate change. Yes, that exists.
Wow. Interview, EPA boss. Here's the good news about climate change. Okay. Climate change is happening now. We are causing it, and frankly, it can seem terrifying. But, and this is a critical but, there's still room for hope. That's the message we take away from an interview with outgoing head of the EPA, Gina McCarthy. This is worth reading. Even you, my friend, can read this. Well, maybe you can't, but you should. Okay, you got a takeaway on this one?
Well, yeah, this is what Gina says. I don't think that getting rid of the CPP, that's
The Clean Power.
Clean Power, or not joining the Paris Agreement is somehow going to change anything in the U.S.
No,
Investments
no.
are set, 5 times as much investment in clean energy as there is in the rest of the economy.
Yeah,
That says it all.
yeah, yeah.
The private sector is demanding it. The
Yes.
Earth's math doesn't change because of politics.
The number of jobs in the solar power industry and the wind power industry exceeds, I think, what the coal industry ever had.
Well, what does? She says there's 2.5 million people depending upon it for jobs.
On that, and
On this
yeah,
particular
and
article.
does that include efficiency? Does that include
I don't
people
think so.
who put, because we talk about clean jobs, and clean jobs include weatherizing buildings and putting in insulation and, you know, building cars that run on batteries and servicing those cars and all kinds of things. So this is a huge, 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 huge industry.
I don't know if it was this article or a related one that we'll talk about again this week, but the guys that climb up in those towers and maintain the turbines, they make a lot of money.
That's the fastest growing job in the United States,
Yeah.
is maintaining turbines.
And they're making good.
But you got to
good
be
bucks.
able to climb 300 feet of ladder.
I couldn't do that.
I couldn't have done that when I was 20. I would get fearful if I stood on a chair in the kitchen, you know. There are masts, however, I have to say this, there are actually masts that have a kind of a rudimentary elevator inside.
I can believe that, yeah.
Okay.
You still got to hang out on the outside of those things with a rope around your belly, though.
Well, yeah, and those things that people wear when they're doing that are designed to hold their full weight if they fall.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, but it would still be, I think, a very uncomfortable thing. You know, calling up on your cell phones
Be
or
quiet.
whatever it is they use for communication and saying, I need some help here. I'm dangling on the side of a wind turbine.
Hey, we're gonna dangle you on the side of a wind
No, we're
turbine if you
not.
don't shut up.
We are not. I will not permit it. Okay, we're up to, still on the 4th of December, the Columbia Daily Tribune. He wants a little affection, I think.
Well, he wants some little, that's for sure. I thought you were gonna be quiet. I didn't want to leave you out in the car.
He
Okay,
doesn't
Columbia.
appreciate- Maybe he's saying thank you.
He probably is. Columbia seeks to increase wind energy.
All right.
Contract would add to renewable power.
All right, now this
And
is...
where is Columbia?
This is Columbia, Missouri. It's a city in Missouri. Columbia, Missouri could more than double the amount of wind energy it uses with a proposed contract coming up before the city council Monday. Now, that was Monday, December
That was
5th.
Yeah, a couple of days ago.
The Columbia City Council will take under consideration a contract with Iowa-based Crystal Lake Wind 3 LLC to purchase wind energy for $19.55 per megawatt hour. Now that is one.
That's 2 cents.
It's a little less than 2 cents per kilowatt hour. Now,
Amazing.
The thing that's interesting about this is nobody said a record was set. Nobody said this is a super low. Well, they did say it's a low
Well,
rate.
a lot of them are coming in at that level.
This is actually not particularly low. This is kind of average. The thing that the article was about was the fact that they were doubling the amount of wind energy they were using, not that they were getting a super low price. It just happens that it's a super low price.
Say that again. I missed that one. So the fact that they're
The
doubling the
article-
amount of it,
yeah.
that's the message.
That's the message. The fact
Okay.
that it's a super low price is they're mentioning it in passing. And of course, one of the things that's good about this is if you have a contract with a wind facility and you're supplying a lot of power from it, it makes sense to get a second contract with another wind facility that is remote from the first one, so that they're in different
Okay, because
weather
yeah,
patterns.
if it's not blowing over here, it's probably blowing
Right.
over there.
For example, if Brattleboro wanted to have a substantial amount of wind power in a local utility energy portfolio, it would make sense to get some of it from Maine and some of it offshore from New York.
That makes
and
sense.
Some of it from the thumb of Michigan, which you could do.
Well, all it is really that these days is a bookkeeping thing anyhow.
Right.
You're not getting the electrons from Michigan.
You're not getting electrons from Michigan. Although,
You could.
you could. The distance, I'm reading about utilities in Florida buying energy from wind farms in Oklahoma. And, you have to have some kind of transmission line in between the two.
They're building the transmission lines.
They're building the
The same thing's
transmission
happening on the West Coast.
Yes,
San Diego's buying power from the Midwest
yes.
and running power lines.
And they're running power lines. But,
Things are changing.
things are changing. They're using, and one thing that people should know here, I did some research on the distance that you could go with power lines. And in 1985 or thereabouts, there was about a 10% line loss per 1,000 miles of power lines.
That makes sense,
All right,
yeah.
10%.
Yeah.
So that means that if you're putting on 900 megawatts in Chicago, you're going to be able to get
800.
810 or
Yeah,
something,
something like
in
that.
Boston. But and by 1995, that had been reduced to about 6.5%.
Well, we got high voltage DC now.
Yes.
And the line losses are very low.
Right, and
I think we could go from Alaska to Tierra del Fuego.
we could. They've got superconductors being
Yeah.
used where the line loss is
Virtually zero.
it's virtually zero, and it's just a matter of the line loss is the cost of keeping the lines cold.
That's it.
You see.
Yeah, you have to refrigerate the
You
line.
have to refrigerate the line. This is crazy.
There's no
but-
such thing as a free lunch, right?
No, there's no such thing as a free lunch. You're not going to get free energy out of anti-gravity. You can't just put a sticker on a rock and have it go up to the top of a mountain. It's not going to happen. Okay, should
Well,
we?
let's move along to China here.
To
We got
China.
a picture coming up.
And this is Monday, December 5th. Oh, cute little girl.
Yeah.
There you go.
Rare fog and smog strands over 20,000 passengers at a China airport.
About 20,000 passengers were stranded at an airport in Chengdu, China, as flights were grounded because of heavy smog and thick fog that left the city in a dark haze. The air quality index in Chengdu registered 280, which is a level considered very unhealthy. In some industrial cities south of Beijing, the air quality levels reached 875, which is 3 times that level that is considered very unhealthy. This is
They were
from
issuing
Beijing.
everybody white canes.
White canes,
Yeah.
so they can be seen
So you can walk around in the dark.
in the dark. Aha, I see.
This
Because
is
everybody's
from the
blind.
article. It's so hazy that you have to strain your eyes to make out the big airplanes against the curtain of darkness. It was black there.
Yeah.
Wow.
The pictures that I saw, it was dark outside in the middle of the daytime. Okay, should we go on?
Well, we're still in China.
All right, this is from the Los Angeles Times.
Through climate change denial, we're ceding global leadership to China. Now, we mentioned this last week.
Yeah.
This isn't going away.
No, it's not.
Okay, you shut up.
Was no more prepared for the results of the American election than the U.S., but it has been quick to size up the environmental implications of a Trump victory. And officials in Beijing are contriving to cast China in a fresh leadership role. China is taking over moral authority worldwide from the United States. Think about that. Think about the implications of that. 195 countries have signed that Paris COP21 agreement. The same number of countries there are in the UN, although some
They're
of
not
them-
exactly all
not
the
exactly
same.
the same. Iraq, for example, has not signed. Iraq is the only OPEC state that has not signed that Paris climate agreement.
That's so. That's interesting.
Right, and
Well, is
that-
there anybody left in Iraq that can sign something like that?
well, they've got there's a reason why they haven't done it,
I
and
don't know what it would be.
I don't remember what it was, but it was like,
Too busy fighting a civil war.
I don't know. They are the only ones in OPEC, and they're, it's like everybody was signing on to this thing, including the United States. The United States was assuming a leadership role along with China, and now it's walking out on that role, leaving just China.
I think the implications of this are going to be strong. I don't think it's really going to happen
The
because
Chinese are laughing all the way to the bank on this. if
that's the
United
whole
States-
point, the bottom
Yeah.
line. It's going to affect the bottom line,
It is.
and businesses
And-
are going to
but
see.
There are countries that are saying we have to have sanctions against the United States. Think
Yeah.
about that. American goods get taxed as they get to markets in other countries.
That's happening now.
But the money that they get is all going to go to those other countries. So what they're doing is they're making our goods more expensive than anybody else and paying themselves the difference.
Yeah.
Why should we support that? Well, it would make sense that just to prevent that from happening, we could say, we're going to stay in the agreement. We're going to live up to our obligations. We're going to have the clean power plan going, but that isn't what Donald Trump and his cronies want to do. And yes, he is draining the swamp
Yeah.
into the White House. And yes, he will unite the country. When the coal miners and so forth discover that he has promised something that he cannot
He
deliver,
can't deliver.
they're
No,
going to
it's
be
a-
extremely angry, and everybody's going to unite on the side of being ticked at Donald Trump, unless, of course, he decides to change his route. Okay,
Well, we've got another picture coming up
we do.
here.
And there it is.
And there it is. Let me
This
try
is a
to-
funny picture. It reminds me of another picture. It reminds me of a picture that was painted by Hieronymus Bosch. A garden of earthly delights.
Yeah.
Only this isn't delights. This is the garden of earthly protesters. But
He lives, what, at 1500 or something like that? Yeah.
The composition of this reminds me of that particular triptych that Bosch did.
Oh, it's a triptych.
It's a triptych.
I've seen that one. Yes, yes, yes.
It's the before and after of the climate plan. I'm sorry, not climate plan. Before and after of human civilization. Yeah, it shows in the first panel these delighted, wonderful, happy people and animals in the Garden of Eden, and then you see all these people sinning like mad on earth, and then you see all the people suffering like mad in hell. Okay.
Yeah, I wonder what he was on.
Oh, well, he was, yeah.
Well, let's move this, go back to this one, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, this is
Dakota Access Pipeline, in case you hadn't guessed from the picture.
Yeah.
The question is, what happens next?
Yes, what happens next? This is from CNN. On Sunday afternoon, this is an article that appeared on Monday, December 5th. On Sunday afternoon, tribe members and their numerous allies celebrated, crying tears of joy over the fact that the pipeline project would be rerouted away from the land that's deemed sacred. Even so, the decision to reroute the Dakota Access Pipeline could be reversed once President Barack Obama leaves office next month. And
It could be. By the way, I want to mention, this is a very good article.
Yeah.
It's a very in-depth,
Yep.
got a lot of maps, and if you're interested in what's going on out there, click on this one at home and
Yeah.
look at it, because it's well worth looking at.
Yep. Okay, should we just go on?
Well, a quick one here. The Army statement does not. This is important. The Army statement does not rule out approval for the current plans in the future. Okay, so this is just a hold.
Yeah.
It's not over yet.
Yep.
The corporations behind the Dakota Access Pipeline said in a statement Sunday night they fully expect to complete the construction of the pipeline without any additional rerouting. Nothing this administration has done today changes that in any way. They may go ahead and do it anyhow and pay the fine.
What is the fine?
I don't know.
Okay.
Well, whatever the penalties are, I mean, but, so this isn't over at all.
No, it's not over, and the people who are the protesters are still there.
And of course, the Trump administration is the wild card because some of the people that Trump is appointing are very much in favor of the pipeline.
Right. Now, we're up to BBC on December 6th, which is Tuesday, and we have an interesting story about who might be influencing Donald Trump.
Well, this is an interesting story here. Al Gore meets Donald Trump and Ivanka for
Yes.
climate talks. Now, Ivanka's the wild card here.
Ivanka has some influence over her father. Former Vice President Al Gore has met President-elect Donald Trump and his daughter Ivanka Trump to discuss climate policy. The meeting, quote, was a sincere search for areas of common ground, end quote, according to Mr. Gore, a climate change activist. Donald Trump's daughter Ivanka reportedly wants to make the subject one of her signature issues. Now, I watched Al Gore's press conference.
Yeah.
Very brief, where he talked about this, but also an interview that he had, and I forget which news medium it was that it might have been. I think it might have been MSNBC, but he talked about this, and he said that he didn't want to go into details because he regarded the conversation as confidential and wanted to keep it that way because he wanted to make sure that Donald Trump would never regard him as a potential leak of information. But and the same with Ivanka. But he did say there is no secret that Ivanka Trump is an ardent environmentalist. I hadn't known that.
I read that same thing. Matter of fact, I was just going to say something exactly like that. So she's the wild card here.
She is. And it's going to be interesting to see what that turns into. Should we go on?
Well, we got another picture coming up.
We do. And this is from PV Magazine USA. That's a nice little picture of
That's
Vermont
pretty neat,
countryside.
yeah. Vermont deploys its first municipally owned solar farms.
Two Vermont towns, Stowe and Hyde Park, have recently commissioned municipally owned solar plants, making them the first towns in the state to do so. Together, the plants will produce 2.7 megawatts of solar electricity. This is enough to power 299 residences, average residences of the town.
So they're not very big.
That does not sound like 229 residences. It sounds like more than that. This is about 7% of the total number of homes in the towns. So that little solar array is, I think that was done on a capped landfill. I might be mistaken.
I'm not sure. It was either a capped landfill or if it was a quarry.
You know what? This was the quarry. This is the Hyde Park one, the Stowe one. Well, okay, I take it back. One of the two was on a capped landfill, and the other one was on a quarry.
These are places that couldn't be used for anything else.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense.
A capped landfill, you can't build a house on a capped landfill.
You can't farm on it.
You can't farm on it. You can't allow kids to play there on a playground.
Yeah, really.
You can't, and the list of things you can't do is very long. The list of things you can't do is that you can do is
small,
very short.
This is one of the best uses for that land.
It is. It's one of the best.
And they're saving money on the energy.
Yes. So
well, we're going to stay in Vermont here on a very similar situation. Pownell takes the lead in solar power production.
This is from VT Digger. With 2 solar facilities moving toward completion and a third in planning stages, Pownell, Vermont, is becoming a leading community. The total county-wide, this is Bennington County, capacity from solar sources is approximately 3.7 megawatts, of which 2.2 megawatts are in Pownell. But a 2.2 megawatt array is under construction, and a smaller array is also planned.
Well, this is an interesting article to look up because it's local.
Right.
And there's a lot going on in Pownell besides just this.
Yes.
There's some guy developing hydro in old factories where they were one-time hydro powered.
Right.
And this particular array is on the site of the former Green Mountain Racetrack site. And if you look up with Google Earth,
yes.
It's on Google Earth. You can see the solar panels.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this is cool.
Yeah, cool. Pownell is a town which just a little over a year ago saw its water a town committee, 4 members out of a 5-member committee resigned because people were complaining that solar power would a solar
it's
array
going to leak minerals into the ground or something.
Yeah, leak minerals into the ground and spoil their water, and then subsequently, it turned out that all the water wells in Pownell are polluted with a carcinogen that results from the manufacture of Teflon.
That whole part of the state is polluted from exactly that.
Yeah,
yes,
from Teflon manufacture. This is a serious problem, and it's It turns out that there are places where the municipal water supplies are better than home wells, because the
home wells are polluted.
The home wells are polluted. The municipal water is polluted, but the municipal water can be treated to remove the pollutants in a way which makes sense, where it's not economically feasible to do that.
Well, there were several companies there that were making Teflon.
Yes.
For a long period of time.
Yes.
And Teflon's pretty nasty stuff.
Teflon is a difficult problem.
Yeah. And that's what happened. They were dumping it into the ground.
Yep.
And getting away with it.
Yep.
Well, they're not getting away with it anymore.
Yes. Okay.
We got a picture here coming up.
We have a picture coming up, and this is I don't know what to make of the picture, but the picture was supplied with the article. And
there was another picture in the article that showed this golf course that was prettier. It's a really pretty golf course.
Yeah.
I have to mention something here. This is very significant to me.
Yes.
Because this particular town And this particular part of County Clare is the ancestral home of the Finnells.
Okay.
This is where my ancestors come from. I mean, my grandmother lived in Kilkee, which is about a mile away
Oh, really?
from this hotel.
Really?
My great-grandfather lived about 3 miles away from it in the other direction.
Wow.
This is I can probably bet money that I got cousins working in that hotel.
Okay. This is from BBC News. Donald Trump's plan to erect a huge seawall, and I love this, and his Irish golf course has been withdrawn in light of stiff opposition from environmentalists. The original application cited rising sea levels resulting from climate change.
There's no such thing.
It was a Chinese hoax as a key reason for the protective barrier. A new plan with a smaller wall is expected to be submitted shortly. You know, if that had happened in the United States, I wonder what effect it would have on our politics. Because there's a principle in the courts that you can't deny something in one court and expound it in another.
Interesting.
Okay?
Interesting, yep.
You can't say, you know, I never hurt that guy in one court and I put him out of business in the other. So I don't know what to make of this. But yeah, Donald Trump was claiming that they needed a seawall because of climate
Well,
change.
it's also interesting because in Scotland he's fighting
Yes,
just exactly that because climate change doesn't exist.
yes.
But in this particular case, the sea was encroaching on this golf course, and the sea was
I
taking
got
dunes
news for
out.
you. He's got a big hotel right on the beach in Florida. Do you suppose the sea is going to encroach on that one of these days?
Probably has already.
My bet is that he's going to get a call from an insurance company saying, we can't insure this anymore, sorry.
That could happen. It's happening right and left.
Yeah. Okay, our next item is from New England Public Radio.
Coming back locally,
Yes.
New England's largest battery is hidden inside a Massachusetts mountain.
We've talked about this. The largest battery in New England, and once the world, was built 45 years ago and is still working. It's hidden on top and deep inside a mountain in north central Massachusetts. Northfield Mountain is now undergoing relicensing to run for another 50 years, providing grid load leveling for solar power and wind power. In the past, it had been for nuclear power.
Mm-hmm.
Because
And if you go there, you don't even see it. I mean, it looks like a park.
it looks like a park because it is a park. It is a park.
Yeah.
Well, you know, across the road, they've got a bunch of solar panels. But this thing, you can go snowshoeing there and,
Yeah.
and hiking
Hiking
and
yep.
picnicking and stuff like that. Okay, and our last item is from Clean Technica, and we have a
We
graph.
got a picture
for
here.
this.
Yeah, let's bring the picture up.
This is an opinion piece from Clean Technica.
Trump's lies threaten wind techs, who are the fastest growing U.S. job. We just alluded to that.
We did
Yep.
indeed. There are reasons why Trump's vendetta against what he calls the windmills hurts his own voters. First, wind techs, the guys who climb towers to do maintenance, are blue-collar workers from red states, mostly, and theirs is the fastest growing job in the United States.
Well, he's been on his high horse talking about this, and virtually everything he's saying is a lie.
Yes. And this particular article goes into some detail about this,
Yeah,
about the
exactly.
fact that everything he says is a lie.
They don't work.
They don't work. They work fine.
They're all built in China.
They're not. In fact, you know, some of the best wind turbines in the world are built in Vermont.
I didn't know that.
Northern Power Systems.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. That's
Oh,
right.
I can believe it. I can believe it. It doesn't employ very many people. That's another lie.
Oh, man. It employs more people than the coal industry. More people than he could get employed in the coal industry. A bunch of other stuff, too. I want to point out, of this, these are, when it says here by Trump voters, 45% in this chart, the 45% is the 45% of voters who voted for Donald Trump.
So this is a very selective chart. This is
a
not
selective
every
chart.
voter.
This is not every
These are
voter.
Trump voters.
These are Trump voters. 37% of Trump voters strongly support development of clean energy. 38% somewhat support it. That comes to 75%. 3 out of 4 Trump voters support clean
That's
energy.
exactly 3/4.
13% somewhat oppose it. 8% somewhat oppose it. Strongly oppose it, rather. 2% don't know. 2% refuse to answer. Yeah. Well, and you know,
He's shooting from the hip.
Trump,
Yeah.
he's shooting from the hip. He doesn't have any idea. But, you know, there's a reason why he is against wind power, and it's the same reason why Breitbart is against wind. And so if you go to Breitbart,
It's an article of faith.
it's an article of faith. They have a religion in which there is a deity called Mammon who resides in an oil well.
Oh, is that where he hides out?
It's
huh?
underground,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
It's down there with the devil, but you know, he resides in an oil well. So there you have it.
So I guess we've pretty much covered it.
We've
haven't we?
covered pretty much everything, and I believe that we are a little shy of our, you know, the timer that I've got on this recorder is telling me that we've been on for 1 hour and 47 minutes, and I don't believe
I
it.
don't think that's right. Timer I'm looking at there, well, no, it says 10:55. I don't remember when we started.
We started just,
Well, whatever.
yeah, whatever. Anyway, we'll let Roland figure out.
Roland will adjust. yeah.
Roland will adjust. So, next week, we will be talking about Cape Cod and Martha's Vineyard and the fact that they are going 100% renewable. We have a list of cities in the United States, in the world, you can find them online, lists of cities that are 100% renewable. Burlington, Vermont
Is one of
is
them.
one of them, and very few of them have actually done it, but a number of cities have said we're going to do it. The first one in the United States was Greensburg, Kansas, with its population of about 800, 900, something like that.
Well, Greenfield, Mass was like 98% there.
I think Greenfield, Mass is more than 98%.
Yeah.
It's upwards of 99%.
Yeah.
Because the only way you could be off you could be off of 100% renewable energy in Greenfield.
You gotta opt out
You have
of
to
it.
opt out.
And it's gonna cost you more.
You pay extra to opt out. And so why does a person do this? Well, I don't know. But, you know, some people hate wind power, so they want to opt out of things. By the way, there was a big wind plant that was given approval in Australia, and I didn't include it in the news, but it happened. And that wind plant was given approval very quickly. It was, you know, they did their vetting, they invited people to come comment on it. But after the initial comment period, they just approved it.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason they approved it was because nobody objected.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
All right. Nobody
You can't do
objected.
anything these days without somebody objecting.
Well, in Australia, you had the first indication that there were human health effects of wind power, and they came from organizations like the Foundation. And of course, the Australian Medical Association members started publishing peer-reviewed papers on the subject. And after several years of that, the Australian Medical Association said that the human health effects of wind power were a placebo effect, or what they call a nocebo effect,
Yep.
in which they result from
How you feel.
how you feel.
Yeah.
Exactly. And they said that the negative health effects of wind power were because of the scare tactics of anti-wind activists.
Yeah.
It's not a quote.
No, I read
I'm
that same
making.
thing.
And the Wabra Foundation subsequently was sued by the city of Wabra to get it to stop.
They didn't want to use the name.
They didn't want them to use the name. So, and now we've got this thing where anyway, there we have it.
Well, we're going to be seeing more and more municipalities coming together on their own and doing what this Cape Cod group of towns did. We'll
Right.
talk about that more next week,
Right.
but that's going to be happening more and more frequently.
Right. That is going to be happening. And so there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. We hope to see you, we hope you will see us next time. I would hope gentle rains can fall upon the land, so lovely earth can stay lovely still.